Hey everybody, welcome back. So you know how it goes. The new TVs come out and everybody's abuzz about what's happening with Sony and Samsung and LG. Now Vizio has increasingly been a part of that conversation, but I have never been so excited to unbox a Vizio TV before. I saw what this looked like at CES and I can't wait to see what it looks like here. We're talking about the Vizio P Series Quantum X, and it's meant to be a badass TV. Okay, so we popped open the top of the box. Here's what we found, not a ton here. First, some important product information. Totally not important. You can toss that. There is a quick setup guide here, which you probably won't need after watching this video. And then we've got a power cord. We'll insert that later. Vizio's remote, looking very much like prior year Vizio remotes. Duracell batteries for the remote, 4 rather long screws. And then we see our stand legs here, which you know what that means. We're looking at another wide footprint, which I will moan and groan about in just a minute. Use bag handles to remove TV. Well, that's interesting. You know, what else is interesting is I've never seen all these graphics on all these boxes showing don't pinch the panel before. Makes me wonder if there's been a lot of returns due to cracked panels. And yeah, you don't want to moosh on the LCD panel because you can break pixels or even crack the glass that way. But it's hard to remove these things from their boxes. So I kind of dig that they have something like this where you can just sort of lift it out. The other cool thing here as we pull this back is that the TV's got a really nice piece of cardboard pressed up against the TV with padding behind it and then even more styrofoam padding in front of that, so you can lay this right down on the floor or on a table and get those legs in there. Oh, hey, thanks for joining me down here. So I'm about to install these legs, and before I do that, I wanted to point something out which may come as some disappointment to some of you. So these legs are designed to branch outward towards the edge of the TV. And I know that in some TVs in the past, you've been able to reverse them so that they face inward. I always thought that looked silly, but it did allow a little bit of space savings. Unfortunately, that's not possible with these. They're a mirrored pair, and if you try to put them in backwards, they're just not gonna slide into the bottom of the TV. Sorry. So I set up a lot of TVs, and I gotta say, I like the way that the Vizio's propped up off of the floor a little bit with that cardboard. That was really smart. So yeah, I mean, this is really simple. We just insert this in here, it says R for right, and there's a little bit of strain on the TV, but nothing too big. And then you know what happens next. We get screwing. Behold, the justifiably underrated backside of the television, although there's a few things to show you here. So a couple of speakers here. I think these are the bass drivers, and I'm really interested to hear how this TV sounds when we get it up and running. And then the typical L-shaped recessed area for all your connections. Couple of things to notice here. 1, 5 HDMI inputs. Most flagship TVs are coming with 4. So that's interesting. They are not HDMI 2.1 spec, and I don't know if we're gonna see any HDMI 2.1 feature support like eARC or variable refresh rate from Vizio this year. I'm not counting on it, but you know, that could still happen. You've got a little bit of manual controls around the side here. Not too big of a deal. And I did want to point out, Vizio still rocking the RCA connectors for the composite and component video connections. So if you happen to have legacy components, they make it easier. Most people just make you use a breakout cable. All right, so we're looking pretty classy here. I mean, the bezel is almost non-existent. Maybe it's 2 millimeters thick, I think. 1/16 of an inch, something like that. There is a little bit of a black border around the image. We'll show you that in a few minutes. And as for the stand, it's metal. I'm not a huge fan of the chromed out look, but that's personal preference. I will have to point out though, we're talking about 51 inches from the outer edge of each of these pedestals. So that's a pretty big footprint, and you're gonna need a big entertainment console like we have here. The BDI corridor is made for a big TV like this. About 12 inches worth of depth, so it's not too deep. The other thing that I like is that the Vizio badge is nice and small down here in the lower right-hand corner. And then there's one weird thing that I wanna point out to you. You hear that? I've never heard that with a TV before. It's almost as if it's not glass. In fact, it's not glass, it's plastic, but it's something about the mounting here is odd. We get a little bit of a noise and a shake with that panel, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. All right, let's power this on. And as I do, I want to point out that the anti-glare coating on this is pretty stinking good. Certainly as good as the Sony X950G, and maybe not quite as effective as the Samsung Q90, but good all the same. So here's something that's interesting. When you turn on the TV, it wants to go into stored demo mode, which I think is odd. Here you just want to press the input button. And then I assume most of this is going to be pretty standard setup fare. Pick your language. You're using it at home as opposed to the store. off. And then, as is often the case, you're gonna face a firmware update. Pretty much no matter when you buy this TV, it's a good bet there's been a firmware update and you're gonna have to sit through it. Vizio calls its smart TV platform SmartCast, but it's based off of Android, which is why you're gonna see some stuff about accepting Google's terms and conditions for search and voice control and voice assistant. Also, you'll notice that it's got Chromecast built right in. So name the TV what you want, and just remember that's what you're gonna be casting to later if you want. Now, if you're not used to using SmartCast, it takes a little bit of getting used to. I do like that they automatically give you access to the picture mode without actually having to go into the settings. I do pick quick start mode. I usually stay out of eco mode because that can affect the brightness. But to dig into picture settings, we're gonna have to go searching. So there's no settings on the on-screen interface. You actually have to use the menu button on your remote control. So keep that in mind. That's a little bit different than what we're used to with Android TV. So once we get the menu open, we go into picture and we've already selected calibrated. There is a calibrated dark setting as well, for dark rooms obviously. If we move over to the standard picture setting, you'll notice that actually by default it comes with auto brightness control set to medium. I would suggest turning that off because if you're picking standard, you want the brighter picture. Vivid is also extremely bright and that comes with auto brightness control off by default. And you can see how it just leaps to life. Of course, I would never select either one of those picture modes. If we go back to our calibrated mode and we thumb through the settings, most of this stuff is par for the course. I'm noticing it takes a while for the TV to catch up to our inputs, which is interesting. Active full array is how you basically control the intensity of the backlight system. There's 3 settings off, well 4, off, low, medium, and high. I'm gonna stick with medium for now until we can really dig into this TV. But motion control, I'm gonna go into that right off the bat and make sure that clear action is turned off and we don't have any judder or motion blur reduction turned on. I love that they have this off by default. We don't actually need to make any adjustments there, but it's always good to check. All right, so this is your home screen, so to speak, and this is Vizio's SmartCast Smart TV platform. It's built off of Android, and it does have some advantages to it in that Vizio is able to update this year by year and keep it pretty relevant. And as a Google or Android-based system, that means you get Chromecast built in. You also have to accept some terms and conditions for Google and Google Assistant as you're setting up the TV. You basically get a line of apps down here along the bottom. And I can't help but notice that YouTube is not represented, which is odd because we're talking about Android after all. So I go here to access more apps and I figure, well, I can just add an app, but I get this screen where I can either learn about how to cast with Chromecast or I can just back out and do nothing, which means basically that there is no YouTube app on this TV. It is one of those apps where if you want to get the content from, in this case, YouTube, up on the TV, you have to use Chromecast. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. All right, so I'm gonna be completely honest with you right now. I am not a fan of SmartCast right now. Having played with it on this TV, it's pretty sluggish. There's some things about it that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. Just not a fan. I can get over that. You know, if we hook up a Roku to this TV or even a Fire TV device, we can get past that. Apple TV, you know, you could use that as well. Sure, AirPlay 2 and HomeKit are coming to this TV and that's something, but this is the platform that runs the TV, so I'm a little bit concerned. If I set that aside, I think there's still a lot to be excited about with this TV. It's got 384 local dimming zones for the 65-inch, up to 2,900 nits of brightness, which could be an unparalleled HDR experience if they do it right. So there's a lot to learn about this TV. You're definitely gonna wanna check back to get the full review on this thing because I think there's a lot to discover. It could be one of the breakout televisions of 2019. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hang out with me in the comments section. What do you think of this TV so far and how it ranks against the other TVs we've been reviewing? I really want to know, and I'll have fun having a conversation with you there. Of course, like and subscribe the video if you will, please. Hit that notification bell so you know when I'm coming out with another TV review video. And of course, visit digitaltrends.com for all the latest tech news and reviews.